A vast desert in Peru hides giant drawings you can only see from the sky. This is the mystery of the Nazca lines, ancient geoglyphs that have puzzled experts for generations. Why would a civilization spend centuries carving enormous spiders, monkeys, and geometric shapes into the earth, designs completely invisible from the ground? By the end of this journey, you will possess a complete picture of one of archaeology's most compelling puzzles, understanding not just the how, but the profound why behind these desert giants. We will explore everything from their possible role as a celestial calendar to their function as sacred pathways for water deities. How does a society leave a message so grand, its full meaning can only be grasped from the heavens? This desert floor is a masterpiece of natural engineering. The Nazca people did not simply draw on sand. They worked with a prepared surface, a giant etching plate waiting for their touch. The entire region is a high, stony plateau known as the Pampa Colorada, which means the colored plain. It is covered by a thin layer of dark, rust-colored pebbles coated in iron oxide. Beneath this dark veneer lies something completely different, a bed of light-colored sand and clay. To create their lines, the Nazca simply had to remove these dark surface stones. They did not need to dig deep, they just needed to push the rocks aside, revealing the bright earth underneath. This created a stunning visual contrast, a white line on a dark background, a technique that is both brilliantly simple and incredibly effective. The environment itself then conspired to preserve their work. This is one of the driest places on Earth, a hyper-arid desert where rain might only fall for half an hour each year. With so little water to wash the lines away, and with winds that sweep across the plain at a near-constant pace, the delicate designs were never buried by shifting sand dunes. The desert became a perfect, permanent gallery. This understanding transforms the lines from mysterious drawings into a deliberate collaboration with the land itself. It reveals a people who understood their environment intimately, who saw the potential for immortality not in stone blocks, but in the very skin of the earth. The people behind these lines were masters of a harsh and beautiful world. The Nazca culture thrived in this desert for nearly 1,000 years, a civilization as complex and enduring as the Roman Empire was on the other side of the globe. They were far more than just the creators of the geoglyphs. Their legacy is one of brilliant adaptation. To survive in one of the driest places on Earth, they engineered a remarkable system of underground aqueducts known as puquios. These were not simple wells, they were sophisticated tunnels that tapped into subterranean aquifers, channeling life-giving water to their fields and settlements. This alone speaks to a highly organized society, one capable of planning and executing massive public works that sustained generations. Their artistry flourished in other ways, too. They produced ceramics painted with vivid, multicolored depictions of mythical beings, killer whales, and harvest scenes. Their textiles were intricate tapestries woven with incredible skill. This was a people deeply connected to a spiritual world, a cosmos where every element of nature was likely imbued with meaning. The organization required to create the Nazca lines points to a powerful central authority, perhaps a class of priest astronomers who could command the labor of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Why would so many devote their energy to creating images they could never fully see? The answer lies in their desperate relationship with their environment. In a land where rain was a rare miracle, the gods who controlled water and fertility held ultimate power. The geoglyphs were not art for art's sake. They were a monumental plea, a sacred language written on the desert floor, a direct communication with the deities of the sky and the earth. These lines were the physical heart of their cosmology, a desperate and beautiful attempt to bring order and life to an unpredictable world. For centuries, these immense drawings were invisible to the people living among them. They were simply part of the landscape, their grand designs a secret kept by the desert itself. That secret was first unveiled not by an archaeologist with a trowel, but by pilots soaring high above in the early days of commercial flight. In the 1920s and 30s, aviators flying over the Peruvian coast began reporting strange, gigantic forms etched into the earth, shapes of birds, spiders, and endless straight lines that stretched to the horizon. This was the first time anyone had seen the Nazca lines for what they truly were. A Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Zesp had actually documented the lines from ground level in 1927, but without that elevated vantage point, he could only describe them as sacred paths, unaware they formed colossal images. The world outside Peru began to pay serious attention thanks to an American historian named Paul Kosok. While studying ancient irrigation systems from the air in 1939, he looked down and saw one of the lines pointing directly at the setting sun on the winter solstice. He famously called the Pampa Colorada the largest astronomy book in the world, but the most important figure in this story of discovery was a German mathematician named Maria Reich. What began for her as a temporary job as Kosok's assistant turned into a lifelong obsession. Maria Reich devoted more than 50 years of her life to the lines. She lived in a small house near the desert, battling the harsh sun and wind to meticulously map and measure hundreds of the geoglyphs. She used little more than a ladder, a notebook, and a fierce determination to protect the fragile artworks from damage. It was Reich who cleaned the lines with a broom, who fought to keep vehicles off the plain, and who tirelessly promoted their significance to the world. Her work single-handedly transformed the Nazca lines from curious local markings into one of the most famous and puzzling archaeological sites on the planet. She became known as the Lady of the Lines, a guardian who made it her mission to ensure these desert giants would not be forgotten again. Her dedication sparked the global fascination and the flood of theories that we are still trying to unravel today. Soaring above the Pampa Colorada reveals a sprawling gallery of giants. The Nazca lines are far more than just straight tracks. They are a diverse bestiary and a geometric playground etched into the earth. The most captivating figures are the biomorphs, the animal and plant forms that seem to dance across the desert floor. There is a hummingbird, its wings outstretched for 120 meters, forever frozen in mid-hover. A colossal monkey, captured in a playful pose, boasts a tail that spirals into a perfect coil. A sleek spider with impossibly long, articulated legs crawls across the plain. A condor with vast wings seems ready to take flight, while a pelican and a killer whale also join this stone menagerie. Then there is the enigmatic figure known as the Astronaut, a humanoid form with a large, round head, seeming to wave from the side of a hill. Each of these intricate figures is rendered with a single, unbroken line that never crosses itself, a design principle that adds a layer of profound mystique to their creation. Alongside these living forms are the geometric geoglyphs, staggering in their own right. Vast trapezoids that look like giant runways stretch for hundreds of meters. Sharp triangles and rectangles punctuate the landscape, while some lines run arrows straight for many kilometers, cutting across hills and valleys without the slightest deviation. The precision involved is breathtaking. To scale up a drawing of a monkey with a spiraled tail to such a massive size, and to execute it with such clean, continuous curves, demonstrates a masterful, almost intuitive understanding of geometry and proportion. They achieved this without aerial views, without GPS, using only rudimentary tools and an incredible spatial awareness. Each creature in this desert zoo was likely more than just art. It was a symbol, a key to the Nazca spiritual world. The hummingbird, a pollinator, could be a plea for fertility. The monkey, an animal of the lush eastern jungles, might represent a prayer for water. The spider was often a symbol of rain in Andean cultures. By examining each figure, we are not just cataloging ancient art, we are deciphering a sacred language written on the land itself, a desperate and beautiful dialogue between a people and their gods. How did a civilization without flight translate a small sketch into a desert spanning a kilometer? The answer lies not in magic, but in a brilliant application of simple mathematics and coordinated labor. To scale up their designs, the Nazca likely began with a master model, a small-scale drawing laid out on a prepared area. From this model, they could have used a system of stakes and ropes to transfer the proportions to the giant canvas of the desert. Think of it like a massive geometric pantograph. A central axis line would be established, and then key points of the design, the curve of a monkey's tail or the angle of a trapezoid, would be plotted using a unit of measurement. By moving a series of stakes connected by ropes of precise lengths, workers on the ground could replicate the model's form with astonishing accuracy, one plotted point at a time. This method explains the continuous, unbroken lines that define the animal figures, a single team carefully following the path dictated by their guide ropes. The physical work was a matter of careful displacement. Teams of people would then walk these plotted lines, using simple tools to push aside the dark, iron oxide-coated surface stones. They only needed to remove the top layer, a few inches deep, to expose the bright, chalky soil beneath. This act created a stunning, high-contrast line that has endured for centuries. The stability of the desert itself was their greatest ally. The lack of rain meant the lines were never washed away, and the unique wind patterns, which sweep across the plain at a consistent pace, actually helped to clean the grooves rather than bury them. This monumental task was far beyond the scope of a single family or a small group. It was a communal project, a society-wide endeavor. The construction of these lines was likely a deeply spiritual act, organized around religious festivals or seasonal cycles. Imagine hundreds of people moving in unison, following the chants of a priest or the directions of a master surveyor. Each stone they cleared a prayer made physical. The process of creation was as important as the final image, a collective ritual that reinforced social bonds and appealed to the gods for water and fertility. The lines were not just a message to the heavens, but a testament to what a unified community could achieve when they worked together with a shared purpose. The idea that these desert drawings chart the movements of the cosmos is both elegant and compelling. This astronomical observatory theory was the first major attempt to solve the mystery, championed by the pioneers who brought the lines to the world's attention. Paul Kosok's moment of revelation came as he watched the sun set directly along one of the long, straight lines, an event that occurred on the December solstice. He and Maria Reich later documented numerous other alignments, finding that specific lines pointed to the rising and setting positions of the sun at the solstices, the moon at its extreme points in its cycle, and even particularly bright stars. For a civilization living in a hyper-arid desert, this was not abstract stargazing. It was a matter of survival, knowing precisely when the winter solstice would arrive, when the rains might come, or when to plant crops was critical knowledge. The geoglyphs, in this view, transformed the entire pampa into a vast celestial calendar, a landscape clock where the heavens and earth were in constant, readable dialogue. The animal figures themselves might be more than just symbols. the giant spider could be a representation of the constellation we know as Orion, while the monkey might depict the Pleiades star cluster. In many ancient Andean cultures, the appearance of the Pleiades in the night sky signaled the beginning of the rainy season and the planting time. If the lines and figures were indeed a map of the sky, then the Nazca priests or astronomers could walk these sacred pathways, literally tracing the patterns of the stars with their feet, using the earth to predict the turning of the seasons. This theory paints a picture of the Nazca as master astronomers who encoded their understanding of the universe into the very land they inhabited, creating a permanent bond between the cycles of the cosmos and the fragile rhythms of life in the desert. Yet, for all its beauty, this explanation could not account for every line, every trapezoid, or every curious shape scattered across the plain, leaving room for other, equally fascinating interpretations to emerge. But the celestial calendar theory, for all its elegance, cannot explain every line etched into this vast desert. Another powerful idea suggests the true purpose of the Nazca lines was not to chart the stars, but to serve as a direct plea to the gods themselves. This is the sacred pathway hypothesis, and it places the Nazca people's most desperate struggle at the very heart of their creations. Imagine living in a world where water is the ultimate currency of life and death. For the Nazca, every drop of rain was a miracle, every trickle from a mountain spring a gift from the divine. In such a world, how far would you go to beg the gods for sustenance? The long, straight lines and the immense trapezoids may not have been astronomical markers at all. Instead, they could have been processional routes, sacred pathways for entire communities to walk upon during religious festivals. Picture hundreds of people moving in a solemn, chanting procession along a kilometer-long trapezoid, their footsteps a collective prayer vibrating through the earth. Their destination might have been a central point where offerings were made, or perhaps the act of walking itself was the offering, a physical demonstration of faith and devotion. The animal figures take on a profound new meaning in this context. The hummingbird, a creature intimately connected to flowers and pollination, becomes a symbol of fertility. The spider, in many Andean traditions, was an ancient symbol for rain, its web mimicking the life-giving drizzle from the sky. The monkey, an animal from the water-rich Amazon jungles to the east, could have represented a powerful plea for that same abundance to reach their arid home. Each biomorph was not just a picture, it was a totem, a physical representation of a specific deity or a natural force they needed to appease. This theory transforms the entire Pampa Colorado from a passive canvas into a vast, open-air temple, the largest place of worship ever built. The lines were not a message for someone looking down, they were a medium for the people themselves to interact with the divine. By walking these sacred paths, they were not asking the gods to look at their art, they were walking alongside them, tracing the forms of powerful spirits, and physically enacting their prayers for water, for life, and for the survival of their civilization. Yet another theory catapulted the Nazca lines from an archaeological curiosity into a global pop culture phenomenon. In the 1960s, Swiss author Erich von Däniken proposed a radical, sensational idea. He argued that the vast, straight lines and geometric shapes were ancient runways for alien spacecraft, and the animal figures were signals created for these extraterrestrial visitors. This ancient astronaut hypothesis captured the public imagination, suggesting that the lines' visibility only from the air was proof that they were meant for gods from the stars, beings who soared above in their celestial chariots. Proponents of this view questioned how a so-called primitive culture could achieve such scale and precision without the ability to fly, implying the knowledge must have come from an advanced, otherworldly source. This narrative, however thrilling, is overwhelmingly dismissed by archaeologists and historians. It faces one insurmountable obstacle: a complete lack of physical evidence. No artifacts from alien visitors have ever been found at the site, no advanced tools, no mysterious materials. More importantly, this theory commits a profound disservice to the Nazca people themselves. By attributing their magnificent achievements to outside forces, it effectively strips an ingenious and sophisticated culture of its own intellect and capability. It suggests they were incapable of such work on their own, ignoring the very real and demonstrable human ingenuity we have already explored. The methods for creating the lines using simple stakes, ropes, and coordinated labor are well within the technological grasp of the Nazca. Their deep understanding of geometry and their intimate relationship with their environment provided all the tools they needed. The alien runway theory, while a captivating story, ultimately tells us more about our own modern fascination with the unknown than it does about the true purpose of these desert drawings. It is a hypothesis built on mystery rather than evidence, one that obscures the far more remarkable truth of human achievement. Perhaps the most compelling theory connects the lines directly to the pulse of the desert. This water cult interpretation sees the geoglyphs not as a general prayer, but as a precise and desperate dialogue with the most precious resource of all. In a landscape defined by its thirst, every symbol and every line could be a desperate attempt to coax water from the sky and the earth. The evidence is written across the pampa itself. Researchers have noticed a striking correlation between the placement of certain geoglyphs and the location of underground aquifers, the very same water sources the Nazca tapped with their brilliant Puquio's tunnels. It is as if the lines and figures are a surface map of an invisible, subterranean river system. A long, straight line might trace the path of an underground stream, while a giant trapezoid could mark a place where water gathers deep below. This transforms the entire plain from a temple into a sacred blueprint, a hydro-engineering diagram of monumental scale. The animal figures become powerful, specific invocations. That long-legged spider is not just a random creature. In Andean mythology, the spider is deeply associated with rain, its web seen as a symbol of the life-giving drizzle that nourishes the land. The hummingbird, a visitor that appears with the summer rains, becomes a living emblem of that seasonal blessing. Even the monkey, an animal from the water-rich Amazon, might be a magical plea to draw that eastern abundance westward into their dry world. This theory beautifully unites the spiritual and the practical. The Nazca were not simply hoping for rain, they were actively participating in a form of sympathetic magic. By walking the lines that mirrored the water flows beneath their feet, and by tracing the forms of animals that brought or symbolized water, they believed they could influence the gods and maintain the balance of their fragile world. Their geoglyphs were a control panel for the environment, a ritual technology designed to keep the water flowing and their civilization alive. The sheer scale of the Nazca lines speaks to a society with immense organizational power. Coordinating the labor of hundreds, perhaps thousands of people to move countless tons of rock was not a casual community project. It was a monumental undertaking that required a powerful central authority. This suggests a ruling class, likely a priesthood or a lineage of elite leaders, who could command such effort. For these leaders, the geoglyphs were far more than spiritual offerings. They were potent symbols of their own authority. By demonstrating the ability to reshape the very land, they made their power visible and undeniable, a permanent claim to divine favor and earthly control etched across the desert. This grand project also served a crucial unifying purpose. The Nazca region was home to various communities and clans scattered across river valleys. The creation of the lines could have been a way to bring these different groups together under a common religious and cultural identity. Imagine people from different valleys converging on the Pampa Colorada, working side by side to clear a vast trapezoid or trace the outline of a giant spider. This shared labor, this collective act of faith and devotion, would have forged powerful social bonds. It transformed a collection of separate communities into a single people, united by a shared purpose and a shared landscape of belief. For the individual worker, the act of building the lines was not just about appeasing the gods, it was about affirming their own place within this society. By contributing their labor, they were participating in something larger than themselves, reinforcing the social hierarchy while simultaneously feeling a part of the whole. The lines, therefore, stand as a brilliant tool of political and social engineering. They were a mechanism for maintaining cohesion, for demonstrating elite power, and for embedding a collective identity directly into the earth. They were a constant, visible reminder of the authority that could command the landscape and the unity of the people who, together, had answered that call. This human impulse to carve meaning into the earth is not unique to Peru. Across the globe and throughout history, other cultures have left their own giant marks upon the land. On a grassy hillside in England, the Uffington white horse gallops for over 100 meters, a stylized figure scraped into the chalk hill over 3,000 years ago. In the Colorado Desert of California, the blithe intaglios depict giant human figures and spirals, created by the Mojave and Quechua peoples by scraping away the dark desert pavement to reveal the lighter soil beneath. These creations speak to a universal human drive, a deep-seated need to inscribe our beliefs and our identities onto the world at a monumental scale. The common threads are striking. Many of these geoglyphs served as territorial markers, announcing a group's presence and claim to the land. Others, like England's ancient chalk horses, may have been linked to celestial cycles or tribal totems, a form of spiritual expression visible for miles around. Yet when we place the Nazca lines within this global family, their distinctiveness becomes even more profound. No other site comes close to the sheer number and variety found on the Pampa Colorada. While other geoglyphs are often singular figures or small groups, the Nazca Plain holds hundreds of individual designs, from precise geometries to a sprawling bestiary of animals. The technical challenge of their environment also sets them apart. Creating a chalk horse on an English hillside is one thing, but executing a perfectly straight line that runs for kilometers across a flat, stony desert without the aid of modern tools represents a different order of difficulty entirely. This comparison helps us see the Nazca not as a bizarre outlier but as participants in a timeless human tradition. We have always sought to shape our world, to project our symbols onto nature's canvas. The Nazca people simply took this universal impulse and elevated it to its most extreme and magnificent form, creating a desert canvas of such complexity that it continues to challenge our understanding centuries later. Her legacy is etched not into the desert floor, but into the very survival of the lines themselves. Maria Reich arrived in Peru as a young mathematician, but she found her life's purpose in the dust of the Pampa Colorada. What began as a temporary assignment assisting Paul Kosok transformed into a 5-decade-long vigil. She became the line's most fierce and devoted protector, a solitary figure battling the harsh elements and human carelessness to safeguard a mystery she loved. She lived in a modest Spartan house near the desert's edge, her world reduced to the sun-bleached plain and the intricate patterns she sought to understand. Her tools were simple: a ladder, a compass, a notebook, and a broom. With that broom, she performed one of her most vital tasks, meticulously sweeping the lines clear of wind-blown dust and debris. a one-woman conservation crew ensuring the stark contrast between the dark stones and light earth remained visible. Her fight was not just against nature. She battled vandalism from visitors who thought it amusing to drive across the fragile geoglyphs. She confronted the threat of encroaching development and agricultural expansion, often using her own meager funds to hire local guards to watch over the most vulnerable areas. She campaigned relentlessly to government officials, arguing for the site's protection and its profound global significance. It was her exhaustive research, her detailed maps, and her unwavering advocacy that were instrumental in securing UNESCO World Heritage status for the Nazca Lines in 1994, a formal recognition that guaranteed their preservation for the world. Maria Reich was more than a researcher, she was a guardian in the truest sense. Her story reminds us that behind every great archaeological wonder, there is often a singular, passionate individual who refused to let it fade back into obscurity. Because of her, we can still look down from the sky and see the spider, the monkey, and the hummingbird, their ancient prayers kept alive by the devotion of one remarkable woman. Maria Reich's lifetime of work preserved the lines for our generation, but their future is far from secure. These ancient drawings now face a new and complex set of dangers that she could never have imagined. The very stability of the hyper-arid climate that protected them for millennia is beginning to shift. Climate change is introducing unpredictable and violent weather to the region. Sudden, intense downpours can now carve gullies across the pampa, and flash floods threaten to wash away the delicate, stone-free lines in a single, devastating event. This environmental shift is compounded by a more immediate human threat. Illegal mining operations encroach on the edges of the protected area, their heavy vehicles and excavations scarring the landscape and destabilizing the delicate desert surface. The Pan-American Highway itself, a major transportation artery, cuts directly through the archaeological zone, severing the tail of a 180-meter-long lizard geoglyph. Perhaps the most frustrating damage comes from a lack of awareness. Tourists, desperate for a closer look or a unique photograph, have repeatedly driven onto the plain or walked across the figures, their footprints leaving permanent scars on the fragile, dark stone pavement. In 2014, Greenpeace activists damaged the area around the hummingbird figure while laying a banner, a well-intentioned but deeply destructive act that highlighted the vulnerability of the site. The response to these threats has been a continuous and evolving battle for preservation. The Peruvian government, with support from UNESCO, has dramatically increased surveillance, employing drones and satellite imagery to monitor the vast area for any new damage. On the ground, security patrols work to deter illegal mining and trespassing. Access for tourists is now strictly controlled, with viewing limited to a few designated observation towers and tightly regulated scenic flights that minimize environmental impact. The core challenge remains a delicate balancing act. How do you share one of the world's greatest archaeological wonders with the public without loving it to death? How do you educate millions of visitors about its significance while ensuring their presence does not become part of its destruction? The survival of the Nazca Lines now depends on this global stewardship, a collective promise to protect these desert prayers so they may continue to whisper their mysteries for centuries to come. Even with all we have learned, the desert still guards its deepest secrets. For every answer uncovered about the Nazca Lines, a dozen more perplexing questions rise from the dust. Why, for instance, are certain figures like the orca and the pelican carved in isolated locations, far from the main cluster of geoglyphs on the Pampa Colorada? These solitary creatures could mark specific, distant water sources, or perhaps they were the sacred symbols of individual clans who lived in those remote valleys, creating their own tribute to the gods of the sea and sky. Then there is the enduring enigma of the so-called astronaut. Perched on a hillside, this humanoid figure with its large, round head and what appears to be a raised hand in a gesture does not fit the pattern of the other animal biomorphs. Is it a shaman in a ritual pose, a depiction of a deity, or could it be a traveler suffering from the effects of hallucinogenic plants used in religious ceremonies? Its very strangeness keeps the mystery alive. The practical challenges are just as baffling. How did the Nazca maintain the breathtaking precision of their longest straight lines over such vast, uneven distances? A line that runs perfectly straight for several kilometers must navigate rolling hills and dry riverbeds, yet it never wavers. This suggests an almost unimaginable level of long-term commitment, with generations of surveyors returning to these sacred pathways to clear debris and remark the lines, preserving their celestial or spiritual alignment across centuries. Today, our tools for investigation are more powerful than ever. Drone photography and satellite imagery are scanning the pampa with new eyes, revealing dozens of previously unknown, smaller geoglyphs etched into the slopes of nearby hills. These newly discovered figures, often humanoid in form, add fresh layers to the puzzle. Yet each new line we find does not simply provide an answer, it asks another question. This cycle of discovery ensures that the Nazca lines will never be a closed book. They remain a vibrant, active archaeological site, a constant reminder that the past is not a solved equation but a living conversation, and that the most ancient deserts still have stories left to tell. The silent desert is finally beginning to whisper its secrets, but not to the naked eye. We are now entering a golden age of discovery at Nazca, powered by a digital revolution that is revealing a hidden world beneath our feet. Drones soaring just meters above the ground are our new eyes in the sky. Their high-resolution cameras capture details no human pilot could ever see from a small plane, mapping every subtle curve and every faint, eroded line with stunning clarity. They reveal construction marks, the faint pathways where ancient workers first plotted their designs, and even miniature geoglyphs that are completely invisible from any other vantage point. From even higher up, satellites scan the vast expanse of the Pampa Colorada, while a technology called LiDAR pierces the surface itself. LiDAR works by firing millions of laser pulses at the ground from an aircraft. By measuring how long it takes for each pulse to bounce back, it can create a supremely accurate, three-dimensional map of the terrain, effectively digitally stripping away the thin layer of surface vegetation and dust to reveal the contours of the earth beneath. This is how archaeologists have recently discovered dozens of new geoglyphs, some over 2,000 years old, that had been hiding in plain sight for centuries. These are not just more straight lines, but humanoid figures, strange abstract shapes, and even more complex animals, all adding new, unexpected pieces to the puzzle. The greatest advantage of this digital toolkit is its gentle touch. For the first time, we can study these fragile creations without a single footstep disturbing the desert pavement. Every scan, every drone flight is an act of preservation. The data collected is then used to build intricate three-dimensional models, virtual replicas of the entire site that can be explored from anywhere in the world. This allows a researcher in Tokyo to measure the angle of a trapezoid, or a student in London to walk the path of the giant spider, all without causing any harm. We are no longer just observers of this ancient art. We are becoming its digital curators, using the technology of tomorrow to safeguard the messages of the past and uncover connections between the lines that we never knew existed. These ancient lines do more than puzzle archaeologists. They speak directly to something deep within the human spirit. We stand before them and feel the sheer weight of time, a tangible connection to people who walked the earth 2,000 years ago. Their civilization has vanished, their cities have crumbled to dust, yet their message, drawn in stone and earth, remains starkly visible. This endurance challenges our own sense of permanence, forcing us to contemplate what of our modern world might survive for millennia to come. The scale of the geoglyphs induces a powerful duality of feeling. Looking down at the vast spider or the endless trapezoid, we are made to feel small, humbled by a creation so grand we cannot take it in all at once from the ground. Yet in that same moment, we feel a surge of connection to the individuals who designed them. We recognize a shared human mind, a consciousness capable of conceiving such forms, and the will to bring them into being. This bridge across the centuries is built not of stone, but of shared imagination. The very invisibility of the complete designs from ground level is central to their power. They create a necessary awe, a concrete reminder that the world holds truths and beauties that exist beyond our ordinary, limited point of view. We are conditioned to believe that if we cannot see something directly, it does not concern us. The Nazca lines shatter that assumption, proving that profound meaning can be hidden in plain sight, waiting for a higher perspective to be revealed. This touches on a universal human longing, the drive to leave a mark that outlasts our brief lives. The Nazca people, in their desperate plea for water, inadvertently achieved a kind of immortality. They transformed their existential fears into a permanent question for future generations. In gazing at their work, we are not just solving their mystery, we are confronting our own. We see in these desert drawings a mirror of our own curiosity, our own desire to communicate something essential, and our own eternal search for meaning under the vast and silent sky. A persistent myth suggests these desert drawings are completely invisible from the ground. This is only partially true. While the full, breathtaking form of the giant spider or the intricate coil of the monkey's tail requires an aerial view to comprehend, many of the geoglyphs are indeed visible from the surrounding foothills and low mountains that ring the Pampa Colorada. The Nazca people themselves could have climbed these natural vantage points to witness their work taking shape, to observe the processions moving along the sacred pathways, or to simply behold the grand scale of their collective prayer. They were not creating art for an audience they could not see, but for a perspective that connected the earth to the horizon, a view that placed them between the land and the sky. Another popular fiction involves their construction, often twisted into a tale of lost advanced technology or even extraterrestrial guidance. The reality, as we have explored, is far more impressive because it is so profoundly human. They used simple, brilliant methods, stakes and ropes and coordinated labor, tools entirely within their grasp. This was not a magic trick. It was a masterpiece of communal effort and spatial intelligence. The idea that the lines are a recent hoax is perhaps the easiest to dismantle. The dark, varnished stones that were moved to create the lines have been firmly dated using techniques like carbon-14 dating of organic materials trapped beneath them. These tests consistently confirm the lines were made between 2,000 and 1,500 years ago. They are ancient, not a modern fabrication. And this leads to the final, crucial clarification. We often speak of the Nazca lines as a single project, a unified plan executed at one time, but the truth is they were not. The geoglyphs were created over many centuries, a living tradition that evolved with the culture itself. The earliest lines are often simple, straight markings, while the more complex animal figures came later. This was not a static message, but a changing dialogue between a people and their world, a ritual landscape that grew and transformed across generations. By clearing away these modern myths, we do not diminish the wonder of the Nazca lines. We enhance it. We replace fantasy with the far more compelling story of human ingenuity, a society that used the simple tools at its disposal to inscribe its deepest hopes and fears directly onto the face of the earth, creating a legacy that would endure long after their voices fell silent. The mystery of the desert has become the lifeblood of the modern town below. For the people of Nazca, these ancient lines are far more than an archaeological puzzle. They are a vital source of income and identity. The constant hum of small aircraft ferrying tourists over the Pampa Colorado is the sound of a local economy at work. These scenic flights, along with bustling hotels, guided tours to nearby cemeteries and pottery workshops, and visits to the Reich Museum, provide essential jobs for thousands of Peruvians as pilots, drivers, guides, and artisans. This influx of international curiosity has transformed a remote desert community into a global destination, channeling millions of dollars into the national economy each year. Yet this very success creates a profound and constant tension. The financial pressure to accommodate more and more visitors can lead to risky proposals for new roads, hotels, and other infrastructure that encroach on the fragile desert canvas. Each sightseeing flight, while offering an unforgettable experience, contributes to the carbon footprint that threatens the stable, hyper-arid climate that has preserved the lines for millennia. Peruvian authorities now face a monumental management challenge, one as complex as the lines themselves. How do you balance the undeniable need for economic development with the absolute necessity of preservation? The goal is sustainable tourism, a model that carefully controls visitor numbers, enforces strict no-fly zones over the most vulnerable figures, and invests a portion of the revenue directly back into conservation science and security patrols. The future of the Nazca lines depends on this delicate equilibrium. It is a daily test of whether a wonder that survived for 2,000 years can endure the love and the pressure of the modern world. Every line and every curve was a word in a vast desert scripture. The Nazca did not simply draw animals, they invoked powerful symbols through their art. Take the monkey, a creature that thrives in the lush, water-rich Amazon rainforest far to the east. Its presence on this arid plain was no accident. It may have represented a vital trade connection, or more likely, a desperate, magical plea to draw the life-giving abundance of the jungle into their own parched world. This was a form of sympathetic magic, where depicting a creature of fertility could summon the essence of fertility itself. Similarly, the hummingbird, a master pollinator, was likely a vibrant emblem of growth and regeneration, its image a prayer for the desert to bloom. The spider, often linked to rain in Andean beliefs, becomes a direct invocation for the precious drizzle its web so perfectly mimics. Each biomorph was a carefully chosen key to a specific spiritual need. This symbolic language is reinforced by a mesmerizing artistic rule, the use of a single, unbroken line to form each creature. You can trace the entire outline of the monkey or the spider without ever lifting your finger. This was far more than an aesthetic choice. It likely held profound ritual significance. The line itself may have been a sacred pathway, a channel for spiritual energy to flow through the form, activating its power. It transforms the act of viewing or walking into a continuous, unbroken ritual, a circuit completed between the people, the symbol, and the divine. The overall aesthetic is one of stunning clarity and immense scale, a design philosophy meant to be comprehended from a heavenly vantage point. This was public art on the grandest possible stage, a monumental fusion of artistic genius, religious devotion, and a deep, interactive relationship with a formidable environment. The lines were not just a message, they were a mechanism, a beautiful and desperate technology of faith. Across every interpretation, one unifying purpose emerges, a dialogue between humanity and the heavens. These vast geoglyphs were almost certainly a form of communication. but their intended audience was not other people, and certainly not visitors from other worlds. They were messages meant for the gods themselves. In the Nazca spiritual universe, deities held direct command over the elements that meant life or death, the rain, the sun, the fertility of the soil. To simply whisper a prayer was not enough. You had to shout it with the only voice powerful enough to be heard by reshaping the very earth. Creating these massive, enduring symbols was the ultimate act of devotion, a way to capture divine attention on a scale the gods could not possibly ignore. They were permanent petitions etched into the desert, a continuous plea for water, an offering of thanks after a rare rainfall, or an act of pure worship. This perspective transforms our understanding completely. The lines cease to be simple art or practical tools. They become the physical heart of a profound spiritual dialogue. Think of each trapezoid as a processional highway for the gods to walk upon. See each animal as a sacred totem, a living representation of a deity's power made manifest on the ground. The hummingbird was not just a drawing, it was an embodiment of the spirit of pollination and life. The spider was the very essence of rain. By carving these figures, the Nazca were not just asking for favors, they were inviting these forces into their world, creating a sacred space where the divine and the earthly could meet. They used the only canvas vast enough to address the cosmic powers they believed ruled their existence, a testament of faith so immense and so enduring that we, centuries later, are still listening in on their conversation. That same sense of wonder that draws archaeologists to the desert has also fueled the engines of popular culture. The Nazca lines have become a powerful symbol of ancient mystery, a visual shorthand for lost knowledge and cosmic secrets in countless movies, novels, and video games. They are the ultimate ancient puzzle box, often portrayed as a landing site for alien visitors or a complex map pointing to a hidden global treasure. While these fictional stories wildly diverge from the archaeological consensus, their power should not be underestimated. A blockbuster film might show a hero deciphering the spider glyph to unlock a stargate, a premise far removed from the water cult theory, yet that very spectacle can ignite a spark of curiosity in a young viewer. That spark can lead to a documentary, a book, or a lifelong passion for history. This cultural recycling transforms the lines from a static archaeological site into a living, breathing part of our modern mythology. They cease to be just Peruvian artifacts and become global icons, a canvas onto which we project our own contemporary fantasies about the past. This process ensures their survival in the collective imagination long after the academic papers have been filed away. The lines thrive in this dual existence, simultaneously as a subject of rigorous scientific study and a fountain of endless creative inspiration. Their journey from a sacred desert ritual to a pixelated backdrop in a video game demonstrates a beautiful truth that our most enduring ancient mysteries are not confined to textbooks. They belong to everyone, inviting us all to look up at the sky and wonder what other messages from the past are still waiting to be read. The future of this desert mystery is shifting from the sky back to the earth where the people themselves lived and worked. While drones and satellites scan from above, archaeologists are now turning their attention to the settlements and ceremonial centers nestled in the surrounding valleys. By excavating these sites, they hope to uncover the daily rhythms of the people who built the lines. What did they eat? How were their homes organized? Finding answers to these simple questions could reveal the social structure that made such monumental projects possible, painting a vivid picture of the community behind the art. This ground-level research is being supercharged by advanced geophysics, instruments that can see beneath the surface without a single shovel touching the ground are searching for subterranean features, perhaps hidden chambers, water channels, or offering pits directly linked to the geoglyphs. Imagine discovering a network of tunnels running beneath a giant trapezoid, confirming it as a true processional route with a sacred destination. This would transform our understanding from interpreting shapes to walking in the literal footsteps of a ritual. Perhaps the most profound shift is a growing collaboration with the indigenous communities of the region. Researchers are increasingly seeking out local knowledge and oral traditions, recognizing that the descendants of the Nazca may hold cultural memories passed down through generations that offer irreplaceable insights. A story told by a village elder about a mountain spirit could suddenly give new meaning to a line pointing toward that very peak. The ultimate goal is to weave all these threads together, to stop asking if the lines were an astronomical calendar or a water cult, and start understanding how they were all these things at once. The next decade promises to reveal the Nazca landscape not as a collection of separate puzzles, but as a single, integrated system where ritual, society, and survival were inextricably linked, a masterpiece of human adaptation waiting to be understood in its full, magnificent complexity. But these ancient lines are not just a scientific puzzle, they are someone's ancestral heritage. This raises a profound and modern question: who truly owns the past? The Nazca lines are legally protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a designation that declares they belong to all of humanity. Yet they exist physically on the land of the Peruvian nation, and more specifically, on the ancestral territory of its people. This creates a complex web of responsibility and rights. International tourists feel a sense of ownership through their wonder, archaeologists through their study, and the Peruvian government through its legal mandate to protect. But what about the local communities living in the shadow of this global wonder? For generations, their connection to this land has been direct and personal. Ensuring they have a meaningful voice in how the site is managed is a critical ethical imperative. This is not just about having a seat at the table. It is about respecting indigenous knowledge that could hold vital clues to the line's meaning, knowledge that might be woven into local stories and traditions passed down through families. The conversation also extends to economics. The scenic flights and tour buses generate significant revenue. An ethical framework demands that this financial benefit is shared fairly, that local people are not merely employees in the tourism industry, but true stakeholders who prosper from the preservation of their own cultural legacy. Protecting the lines from exploitation means more than just guarding against physical damage. It means safeguarding their spiritual significance from being diluted into a simple tourist attraction. The ultimate goal of this stewardship is to move beyond mere preservation of the physical marks. It is about honoring the legacy of the Nazca people themselves, ensuring that the story told about these desert giants is not just one of mystery, but one of profound cultural respect and integrity. The Nazca lines stand as a timeless monument to human ingenuity, a testament to what a community can achieve when united by faith and purpose. Our journey across this desert canvas has taken us from the first pilots who saw the giant spider from the skies to the drones that now map its every curve. We have walked the sacred pathways of the water cult, traced the alignments of the celestial calendar, and witnessed the social power required to coordinate such a monumental effort. Yet the greatest truth these lines reveal may be that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only to be continually explored. Their enduring power lies not in a single, definitive answer, but in the cascade of questions they provoke in every generation that encounters them. They teach us to look beyond our immediate perspective, to consider the world from a higher vantage point, and to respect the profound spiritual and intellectual accomplishments of ancient cultures. As we continue to study and protect these magnificent geoglyphs, Let them ignite in you a lasting sense of wonder for the unsolved puzzles of our world. If this journey into the heart of an ancient mystery has captivated your imagination, consider subscribing for more explorations into history's greatest enigmas. We would love to hear which theory resonates most with you, so feel free to share your own thoughts on the Nazca lines in the comments below.